I learned 22,000 words in Russian, and now I understand basically 100% of what I listen to, what I read in Russian. And I'm going to show you how I did it. First of all, let's talk about comprehensible input. A lot of you probably thinking, whatever this guy is going to tell me, comprehensible input is a better way to learn, blah, 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 blah. Look, comprehensible input is great. I love listening to podcasts in Russian. I've spent many hours. I listen to it less now these days. I don't know why. But and I've read books in Russian as well. I like reading and I like listening to interesting stuff, watching documentaries, etc. But one of the reasons why you should do this before you do all of that, or you should do this while you do also do all of that, is that comprehensible input, as well as not being very good to learn to speak, you will not get good at speaking just by watching videos. But that's a topic for another video. But the main problem with it is that it's extremely slow, really, really, really slow. So you'll waste thousands of hours of your time listening to stuff, watching stuff, or reading stuff that you don't really understand, or you'll have to listen to it several times. You'll have to check all the vocab, but then you'll forget the vocab anyway. Uh, and it'll take you thousands of hours to learn something, vocabulary and grammar that you could have learned in a couple hundred hours if you did it effectively. So what I recommend is doing something like this in the beginning or in the intermediate stage. So even if you're an advanced learner, you probably would probably benefit from this because this is the key to get your comprehension to a really high level fast. So basically, what we've got here is a really long list of sentences. Example sentences are random. They include all the common vocabulary, all the common grammar, all the common verbs as well. Lots of example sentences. Each common verb, even the less common ones are mentioned several times in all their forms, different conjugations, and they grouped in groups of similar verbs and words. So it's word families, which makes it easier to learn. So we've got thousands of sentences, and here we've got thousands of words, 22,000 words in total. 22,000, no, 22,500 and something words. These are the, this is a list of the vocabulary included in those sentences. This is after running it through a vocabulary frequency calculator, and here we get the most common words. So they ordered from the most common to the least common. You see, and here you get a number of how many times that word appears in that particular text. So вы, они, если, я, он, больше. And this appear thousands of times, and here we get words appear hundreds of times, and at the bottom we've got thousands of words that appear once or twice. You will notice that, and this is really important as well. The first 20-ish words, not even 20, the first 15 words appear a thousand times or more, or several thousand times. 15 words out of 22,000 appear more than a thousand times, or around a thousand times. We get around 100 words in total appear, slightly less than 100 words that appear more than 100 times. And after around look, even after 500, like after the most common 500 words, these are already words that appear only 20 times in a massive list. And everything else below that quickly gets to the single digit numbers and then once or twice for most of them. What does this mean? This is the 80-20 rule. This is an extreme example of it. In fact, this is how it works always. No, 80-20 is more like 95-5 or something. But this was, if we know the first 100 words or so, we know more than half, or maybe a half of all the words that show up in the text. The problem, however, and this is what all those gurus and the self improvement guys and hack this and hack that and the Tim Ferrisses and the what's it Mark Manson and I learned Spanish, bro, with learning the first 100 words. Those people, they didn't really learn anything. This is this is why that line of like just learn the most common 50 words and you understand like this much percent. The problem with that is this: uh, let's say you've learned the most common words or the most common 100 words. So you look at one of these sentences and okay, let's look at this one. Let's say you've learned the most common ones, so it's most common 100. So you know if and I and then I again and if I something I would something. But if you don't know this word and this word, which are not included in the most common 100 or the most common 500 even probably, uh, then you don't know anything here. You just know if this, then that, but it could be anything, right? So this is why you need way more than most common this and most common that. You need a massive vocabulary to understand a language and also to be able to speak. So, how do we acquire a massive vocabulary? Well, we start with the most common words and we use mnemonics. Well, first of all, you should just start reading this and reading it twice. If you can't read very fast, you should start training your reading speed and just read through the whole thing. Also, listen to it while reading. That's also great. 1.25 speed is better than 1.5 or than 1. And then eventually, once you understand enough, you can do 1.5 and even double speed. We'll get there later. But start by memorizing the most common words with mnemonics. Memorize more of the list every day and then review them. But this is just the beginning. Don't think that just learning the 80-20 rule, whatever. No, you need the whole thing. But the good news is that you don't need to memorize everything with mnemonics. The most common ones and then the keywords. But once we, let's say you memorize the first 500 or 1,000 words with mnemonics, but there's still way more, and it's just way too much, right? So what you can do instead is organize it phonetically like this. And if you organize it phonetically, words will be positioned next to other words that look like them. So word families. And the advantage of word families is that you just need to memorize one word out of the family, and then your brain's pattern recognition skills will do the rest. Yeah. So if you, uh, oh, okay, this one is assimilable, assimilated. That's super easy. Or attack, uh, attack, atacami, ataki, atacavao, atacavao. Let's find one that's not super easy. Uh, Balance. Okay, let's do this one. Uh, it's a Pasnosti. It's a really long. Well, there's lots of them. Well, this is without, right? And then Viesapasna, Viesapasnaya, Viesapasnosti, Viesapasnost. They're like safety, security, and we get loads. But you just need to memorize the first one. And after memorizing the first one, You can simply just all the other ones you recognize them in context, and it's just the endings, the declension, the changes, but that's you learn it. What this means, the different endings. You don't need to memorize all of this because that's what the example sentences are for. So if you memorize the vocab daily, uh, you memorize like 30, 50, 100 words a day with mnemonics, and then you breathe maybe 1,000, 2,000 of these sentences while listening, and then you do extra listening to the audio file. So you should train your reading speed if your reading skills are slow. But you should listen and read the whole thing once, normal speed, and the second time 1.25, then 1.5, and then double speed at the end. And you should be fast enough at reading that you can read both at the same time while listening. That's challenging, but that's why you have to keep increasing the reading speed. You have to train yourself to read faster. But if you do that, you learn all the. So if you know what Visapasnas this word meant, you memorize the first one, you'll see it in context. Well, a lot of times actually, because this one's 70 times. Um, but yeah, you keep seeing it in context. So you learn all these. You learn it in context by seeing. Okay, when it's this, like the imi ending is this, and the ich ending is that, and blah blah blah, and you'll see it next to the translation, so you'll understand it, and you learn the patterns, and you learn the grammar this way, and you keep looking at yeah responsible. Okay, yeah, it's four of them. It's not that many, but there's a lot of others that are like this one. You also find a lot similar. You just need to memorize the first one, and then all the other ones you just see them in context, and you'll eventually, if you keep reviewing the list, that's it. That's all you need to do. Yeah. So you memorize the vocab using word families. So this again, if you can create 30, not even 100, 30 mnemonic associations using word families, you can learn maybe not 10 extra because not all of them in groups of 10, but maybe like three or four times that amount of words. Because, okay, some of you will argue, oh, that's not really a different word, it's just same word with a different declination. Yeah, declension, but it doesn't matter. It's still vocab, it's massive amounts of vocab, and you learn the grammar. Trust me, you do this, learn the whole thing, memorize the whole list, and review them several times. And one last thing you could do, and I haven't done it with Russian, but I will probably will eventually once I'm finished with Japanese, is do retrieval practice with this. So you read this and try to translate, and then get the get immediate feedback. This is if you want to learn all these words actively, if you want to be able to use them, which a lot of this is not very practical for conversation. So I don't do retrieval practice normally with these sentences. I do it. I learn this for comprehension. The conversational sentences are much more because if you read this, like a lot of this, you're never going to say it in conversation. This is for comprehension mostly. Although learning all of this will help you speak better, obviously. But yeah, you could do that, but maybe not the best use of your time. So just review it several times, read while listening, and memorize the vocab starting from the most common words. First few hundred most common words, you memorize those, and then in word families. Yeah, so bibliotekach, then bibliotekę, biblioteki, all of this. It just obviously that's library, and it's didn't need to be memorized because it's It's a uh, cognate. But okay, let's say what was beton here, which is yeah, concrete. That comes from German, so I didn't have to. I think it comes from German, not the other way around. But yeah, I didn't have to create a mnemonic association for that one either, because it's an cognate. But you do it with the ones that are not cognate. And the ones that are cognates, just looking at them, seeing them, okay, it's library is the same. Uh, all right, and now you know it. Not that complicated. So with this whole list, I didn't exactly do it like this for Russian, mostly because I didn't have to memorize the most common words first. You know, the you, me, and blah blah blah. Because and many of the other words anyway, because obviously I've been listening to and reading and speaking Russian for years now. So I've done this. This time I had to memorize maybe 1 out of 10 words maximum of this list because everything else I already knew from previous study sessions. But I did something like this when I started. I memorized the most common. Like that was a long time ago, and I've polished my technique a lot since then. Um, but when I started learning Russian, I remember the most common 100 adjectives, one most common 100 verbs, most common 100 nouns, although that's not that useful, and then just lots of nouns, all the things that they talk about, just memorize massive amounts of vocab using mnemonics. Basically, I played something like this, but this time I just made sure because I've been speaking and listening to Russia for years, but I wanted to make sure that I know absolutely everything, all the vocab that there is. So I just ran this thing and I went through the whole list and I found the vocab that I still didn't know, which wasn't that much, but there were words. It's a long list, so there were words that I didn't know, and I memorized those, and I made sure I knew everything. And now, whenever I listen to Russian, again, not as much as I used to, I just got tired of the whole thing. Just it's bad news always. Whatever you listen to, it's just bad news, right? But it's I mean it's interesting. I like economics and geopolitics and all that stuff, but it does get tiring sometimes. But anyway, this is what I would do if I was going to start to learn Russian from scratch now. I hope you find it useful and see you next time.